Hey everybody, what's going on? We're back for another season of Montreal Canadiens hockey on this channel. But before we get started in today's video, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It's as easy as clicking in the bottom right hand corner of this video and comment down below your thoughts on what your expectations are for the Montreal Canadiens this season. Now, the Montreal Canadiens kicked off training camp yesterday, and we kind of saw a little bit of a different approach from head coach Martin St. Louis than we've seen in past years. In previous seasons, we've kind of seen him go the experimental route when it came to opening line combinations, giving maybe some younger players opportunities where they wouldn't necessarily stick during the regular season. That wasn't the case, and that goes to just show you that this is a more serious training camp for the Montreal Canadiens. They're going into the season with expectations, maybe not to be a playoff team, but definitely to take a big step in the standings and at least be competing in the playoff race come March. You're probably going to get sick of hearing being in the mix this season, but that's exactly what the Montreal Canadiens want to be. So you kind of saw what their approach is when it comes to the forward lines, and I don't think there was really any surprises when it came to what they rolled out there. You had the top six of Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Uri Slavkovsky on the top line, and we'll get to it a bit later, but Slavkovsky reportedly looked outstanding during the team's scrimmage on day one. Of course, it's early, and of course, this isn't a real game atmosphere, but it's very noteworthy that he looks a little slimmer, he looks stronger on the puck, he looks faster. Those are all very positives, especially when you factor in how he finished last season. And then you have the second line of Kirby Dach, Patrick Laine, and Alex Newhook. There's going to be some growing pains with this line, especially when you factor in that two of these players had major injuries last season in Laine and Dach. So you got to be a little bit patient, especially during the preseason with these players. They're going to grow some chemistry together, but they have the makings of a very strong line, especially when you factor in how big Laine and Dach are. Those are 6'4" and 6'5" players respectively. So I think there's a lot to get excited about with this top six in Montreal. You just have more scoring depth this season. You're kind of seeing the chairs get a little bit unseated when it comes to players playing in roles they don't really belong in. You no longer have Josh Anderson in the top six. He can now play a comfortable bottom six role and potentially take advantage of other teams' matchups given any different night in the NHL this season. When you look at other teams' bottom six, especially in the Atlantic Division, this is where the Montreal Canadiens need to pounce. This is where they need to take advantage of these situations because the Habs are a deep team. They need to prove it on the ice, but getting into the bottom six, you have players such as Joshua Wall on that third line. You have Christian Dvorak, Josh Anderson. I'm not necessarily certain this line's going to stick, but there's at least some potential that these three players can find some chemistry in camp and make things work. And then you have the fourth line of Brendan Gallagher, Jake Evans, and Yoel Armia. And like I just said, this is where the Montreal Canadiens really have to take advantage of other teams with their depth in the bottom six. I'm sure that Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Uri Slavkovsky has the potential to be one of the top 15 first lines in the NHL. They proved it down the stretch last season with their production, and I think that going into this season, there's a lot more to be excited about from an offensive standpoint, especially when you factor in some of the puck-moving defensemen that they're going to add to the mix this season. Shifting gears to the defense, you have Lane Hudson vying for a spot in camp. You have Logan Mailloux vying for a spot in camp. You have the likes of Jaden Struble, Justin Barron. It's going to be a competition to see who gets those final two or three spots on defense. And it looks like Lane Hudson has pole position at the moment. He was tremendous during the team's rookie tournament games against the Toronto Maple Leafs last weekend, and he didn't miss a beat during the start of training camp. He looks the part of a player that's ready to play real NHL games this season and make an impact. Don't forget that there's going to be some growing pains with this player during his first year, but you don't limit his offensive upside. You let him take chances. You let him do what he has to do to develop in the National Hockey League. I don't believe that he's going to be a fit in the AHL just with the style of play that's more revolved around down there. So I think it's wise that the Montreal Canadiens start him in the NHL, and it's on him to prove that during the preseason. But I have no doubts that he's, by all accounts, likely to start the season with Montreal in their top four or at least top six on defense. And then you have Logan Mailloux, who appears to be a little bit more level-headed this season. He looks like he's not necessarily as drowned out by his hockey IQ as he has been in the past. There have been some questions about whether he has the IQ to compete in the NHL, but he's made some really smart decisions in camp early on as well as in the rookie tournament. I think those are only positives with this player. So I think that he has an outside chance of also cracking the top six on Montreal's defense to start the season. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they start the season with a pairing such as a Justin Barron, Lane Hudson on the bottom pairing. Really a pairing that can move the puck and one that they started out with in training camp to kick things off. So I think it's noteworthy because of how they started things off up front that you also look into how they're starting things on the back end. But you also have to factor in that Caden Gooley is out with appendicitis for now, and we're not necessarily sure when he's going to return. He's going to be evaluated again in 7 days, so that's something to keep an eye on. Just with the technology that they have nowadays and the medical advancements, I don't believe he's going to be a long absence, but it's something to keep an eye on with how the Montreal Canadiens start their pairings to begin the year in preseason. It's great to be back for another season of Habs hockey. I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.